We know you're reading from a book that hasn't been published yet, so it feels like a sneak preview. So I think most of you know the Poetry Library. You've either read in here before or you've been to visit. If you haven't, don't forget, if you're not a student here, you can sign up as a member online. You get sent an old-fashioned library card in the post, and you can take books out. You can also come to events for free. So anybody who's watching online who couldn't make it this evening, just Google Manchester Poetry Library, and there's a membership page, and you can sign up as an adult. And if you've got children, you can sign up as a junior or senior as well. We've got an outreach programme here, as well as all of our work with students and events that are open to the public. So we don't expect a fire drill tonight, so if there is one, just come out the way you came in. And the portico entrance on the square, if you go out that way, we just congregate in the park. And the toilets are just outside the door of the Poetry Library on the right. There is catering this evening. If you want to get yourself a drink during readings, that's fine. Just bear in mind, perhaps at the end of somebody's reading rather than in the middle of it. But do help yourself. There'll be time for questions at the end, so hold on to them. And I'm going to introduce Kim, who is a Senior Director in Creative Writing here at Manchester Met. I know your students will know who you are, but Kim has a forthcoming collection, The House of Broken Things, which is being published in May, and we have a celebration of that book on the 7th of May here. So if you're free, if you want to tell anybody who wants to come to that event, 7th of May, we're celebrating Kim's event. I'm going to pass over to Kim, who's hosting for tonight.
Thank you, Becky. I said to Becky she has to do the sensible stuff like the fire, what we do if there's fire, because, I mean, you can follow me because I'll be running really quickly. But, okay, so I'm just going to tell you how the evening is going to run. We're really lucky to have Daljit here, who I'm going to talk about later on. But first of all, we've got six of my current MA poetry students reading. This microphone is slowly slipping down. Hold on. Yes, so we're going to start off with six of my MA poetry students, and then Daljit's going to read for around. That's fine. Brilliant. And Daljit's going to read for around 20-25 minutes. And then if there's time, we're going to have a very brief Q&A at the end. So start thinking of some interesting questions about life. If you've got any therapy problems, Daljit's really good at life advice. And then we have to put Daljit in a taxi to get him back to London before he turns into a pumpkin before midnight, isn't it? So one of my favourite parts of what I get to do as part of my job is sitting every Tuesday night and talking about poetry with the MA students. And this group I've been working with this term have been an absolute dream to work with. They're supportive of each other whilst being rigorous in their feedback, and they're also great at remaining curious about poetry instead of making pronouncements, all qualities that I think are really important for writers to have. As I think you're going to hear from this group, we pride ourselves at the writing school in the idea that we don't have a house writing style. We don't try and make our students write like us. And what we end up with is this really eclectic range of voices and approaches to language. So usually on a Tuesday, we're up in a room upstairs, sitting in a workshop together, and the students bring their poems for feedback, both from myself and from each other. So I feel like we're on a kind of little holiday tonight, because we haven't had that feedback session. So the order is going to be, I'm just going to tell you the names, and then you can kind of hop up once each person's finished, so I don't have to jump up and down. So Charlie Rhodes, John Clifford, Shauna Jackman, Ryan Rothwell, Joe Conway, and Jan Birkenbayeva. And they're going to kind of tag team each other in a poetry relay baton thing. So please welcome our first reader, Charlie.
Thank you. Hello. One of the wonderful things about poetry is that you can lie. These are some things I wish were true. Sunday morning, poem in which everything is okay. You wake up on Sunday morning as light streams through the window of your room. They bring your breakfast. You feel hungry and it tastes good. They send you home. You sleep in your own bed with your husband, and for the first time in years, you sleep well. You remarry him in church like you wish you'd done the first time. Your hair is long and vibrant, and you know God is there. As the bells ring, a confetti of scrubs floats down around you as we throw them from the roof, like you asked us to. In winter, you hire the man to put up your Christmas lights. In spring, your garden blooms, and you are there to see it. Thank you. And my next poem is my second wish. You screamed when you were born, in all your grief, the rising flesh-electric choral din, the helpless cruelty barefaced lighting beams, air's envious cold against your womb-warmed skin, the smell of mother's pain first taught you dread, and then you lived, and you felt right to scream, as soon you found life rages on ahead, a sweet relentless ache you begged to keep. Now I don't see you in the morning sky. No, you are no unsubtle dove mid-air. And when I say your name, you don't reply. You are gone, but I'd like to think you're somewhere, all much too much to bear. But let it be so beautiful that you don't want to leave. Thank you very much.
Hello. Is that high enough? Can people hear me? Hello. I'm John Clifford. I'll do two short pieces. The first one is a piece I wrote around the time that we buried my father. It approaches. We will lift and lay you close beside your mother. Rest now, gentle soul, against the earth. Leave a hollow in the rib crook for a greater place of comfort. When we depart, we will not find you here again, only where you've always been, visiting in other quiet ways. And from where I sit, I see you now. A robin is gathering leaf and twig, assiduously building a nest in your palm, halting in its flitting. I wonder, if I were to remain here, on the turf you laid and the stones you set, beneath the shade of trees your warm hands formed and watered, could you stay a little longer? Would you hold me still? Cheers. The second piece I'm going to do was actually a lovely commission piece that I got to do for an event in Newcastle called At Your Head Poetry, which is a lovely event. And it's about how much I love poets and how much I love poets performing, and I thought it would play well in this room. So, but this is called Idols in Ink. I worship all of you. Not in a creepy way, I swear. I am here reverential, bestowed with the presence of those who can conjure wonder from the syncopated spaces twixt the drum beats of their hearts. It is miraculous what we do together. In the back rooms of bars and the gardens of loved ones' house parties, I have been starstruck, eyes open to the ardent expression of the people who pull these heavenly pieces. Ambrosial emotion, weighed on the scales. It can be love. It can be grief. It can be your feelings about your morning commute, honestly, or the ways the taste of Cadbury's has changed, because I hear they use shit ingredients now. Just do not feel out of place. Please, you are tonight's celebrities to me, and we will make a space in the chorus for each other's offering, because you're about to do something that is worth adoration. It is elevated by the stanzas that it glows through and is altered on. I bow my head before it. I was changed when I first saw it. I am getting excited, I apologize. I can get a bit long-winded and often proselytize about these sorts of things. My soul will ever sing its harmonies on the purpose-filled bar lines that ink brings into any empty space. It is your grace that I am here to hear. It is your indigo inks upon which I will depart, tattooed indelible in private places in my heart. It beats in there like a green room after the gig's encore. Atriums and archery walls signed by every artist I have adored. Over here, there's Heaney and he's digging with his quill. Ramina's distilling silvery sardine identities. Emily's getting euphonic about their love. And T, too. T's in here graffiti in all my bar stools and telling me, man, fuck poets. April boogies and pirouettes through her hard times and tears. Rifat Telleri's kite flies in here, and I am lucky. God, I am so lucky. There is space made in this grubby heart for angels, and they necessitate a different kind of poem, I suppose. What I'm trying to get at, though, is that I worship all of you. Not in a fleeting way, I swear it. Life would be grey without it, but you colour me in the intermingled mix of all your inks and pigments. They course through my veins, break my stony banks, create chromatic floodplains in me, all of which is just to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hello. I fear this is too tall. No, that was dramatic. It's fine. Don't know why I did an accent. Thank you. I feel like it's too short now. It's fine. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry, that's really dramatic. So, I'm going to do 2 poems. The first one was called... Oh, I'm so sorry. It's fine. Thank you. The first one used to be a bit longer, and then everyone told me in the workshop... I feel like I'm doing a skit. People told me in the workshop to cut it, and my initial reaction was like, no, in my head. I didn't say that out loud. And then I read it again last week, and I was like, yeah, obviously. But yeah, it was called Spin the Bottle, and I'm trying to change the title. Anyway. I am the most desirable thing you can be. A drunk girl sat in a circle, staring down the barrel of a bottle. I look up and Lucy is smirking, pupils wide, gunshots rupturing a green ocean. We'll be the hottest thing they have ever seen. She doesn't say it aloud, but I hear it, a crisp whisper in my ear. She takes her echo falls between her cupid's bow and bottom lip, gulps, giggles, starts crawling over. Her purple mesh shirt floats below her chest and I catch a glimpse of her black lace bra. Mesh fabric grazes my chin as we meet in the middle. One boy licks his lips, others clap. I reach out my thumb, dab wine from her cheek, lean in for the show. I taste her raspberry lip balm and everything around me collapses. Thank you. It feels really dramatic holding the mic like that, I'm sorry. So the next one, I'm trying to sort of create a recurring character throughout a few poems. So I wrote this the other day. It's called Lucy's Writing. Lucy loves writing titles. Bites the right side of her bottom lip, tongue slipping out onto the left. Wraps her index finger and thumb around the pen's neck and crafts, slowly. The teachers tell her it's a pretty title, but you have to move on. I want to shield her book from them. Tell them I think she lingers too long in the title because she's scared of the breathing body beneath it. I think she's worried the words will fail and the meaning will ache to be said. I think she's a girl of force and fire and blood. I think she can roll cigarettes and her R's, feed a boy his own words, draw a line across her cupid's bow, sweet-talk the man into selling us the wine, walk the tightrope between seduction and naivety, but she's scared of the breathing body beneath her name. I envy the pen, how she holds it gently, dots her eyes with hearts. When I die, I think, I'll see her writing, quickly, pages and pages and pages. Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to read this first poem is untitled, but the subject matter is my primary school days. Jumpers, hills, and grass stains, thorn bush and climbing ropes, hymns, prayers, angel delight, the land of lost content. Name like flashing Valkyries through eldritch skies, over unsettled and frost-feathered plains, where homes are merely huts, where dogs are wolves, where ice and one's breath steam and drop of rain are moments in a saga worth remembrance. I've forgotten why I picked up my pen. The end.
Hi. I don't know if you can hear that. It's a sound of cicadas and bats. You probably can't hear the bats. It's an app. It looks like this. And I listen to that to come to sleep. I've got tinnitus, and so it assuages it. And when I go to bed with my partner, I ask if it's okay if I put on the cicadas, and she says, yes, that's fine. I've only started recently finding that quite funny. This poem's called Cicadas. Sorry, it's not. This poem's called Tinnitus. I've been listening to cicadas. I have been listening to cicadas. I have been listening to cicadas again. And an acre of bat song, a lungful of it, a hissing whine curdling the singing lug. This lisping moment rings. I can hear Babylon. I can hear cicadas again in the dawn, and white noise fat with sukkah. I have the faintest idea, and it hangs off the lobe in the Ossian of ossicles, moaning while the writhing length of time listens to hear, to cicadas, church mice, hide in between ears of corn, like stereocilia, like Himalayan balsam, filling my fists with it, settling, nesting, and chattering blindly. And I have slept before now, and I have less to say, and the silences of the great fields, they speak, and oh, don't they stop once to think of me sleeping here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jan, and the two pieces of context that you need for these poems that I've written is that I spend a lot of time on trams and that I'm trans. That kind of rhymes almost. So this poem is called, well, the title kind of runs into the poem, so I'm going to just start. A man sits next to me on the tram, shows me a picture of his dog, despite my headphones and my book in my hands. I indulge him with polite small talk. He turns away, smiles, delighted. His hand slaps my thigh. I don't see it coming. His hand slaps my thigh. His hand slaps my thigh. His hand slaps my thigh. As a woman, a man's hand on my thigh on public transport usually wasn't a good sign. But now, as a man, it's barely a pleasant dream. His hand slaps my thigh. I didn't see it coming. Thank you. And the second poem, I'm very grateful for the feedback in the workshop because I wouldn't have gotten this far with it. It was a poem I was really stuck with. And it's called Lineal Interchanges. 1. Stepping on the tram, I watch you lock eyes with him. A split second to spot the similarity. Almost a sixth sense. How ordinary. Two guys, nothing alike but skin, a cup of well-brewed tea, grating cold hands. Your designer jeans, legs outstretched so far in front that I can see not your increased spotless white sneakers. He's old tracksuit bottoms, puffer coat hood up, trying to hide a body he's yet to grow into. You're all the confidence he lacks. A version where his beard filled out, where he has a girlfriend, not a bum bag under his arm. You're chasing a taste of home too, so you reach out. Ask him, how old? 18. You've got your whole life ahead of you. A crossing in the track of your lives, a new colored branch of a tram line reaching through the network map. Catching up on a lifetime of missed stories and bad advice. Your best tips for Bongo's bingo. 2. I think about my lineage, how it's not so colorfully distinct. Find myself lost when I'm asked for directions in a language I look like I should speak. Watch the spark in their eyes melt into a flustered smile, hiding their own search for connection. I find communion in inked limbs, knowing eye contact and a smile with someone who's made an open sketchbook out of their skin. The eyes of teenagers with chipped black nail polish and thick eyeliner jackets covered in patches and pins when they see me. I step off the tram with a smile, picturing a day I will tell a kid of 18 that they too have their whole life branching out ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Aren't they all amazing? I was sat there thinking, I was sat there thinking I'm so lucky to work with these writers and also to feel like work is not work. That's what my dad always said. If you can do a job that doesn't feel like you're going to work, then you're winning. And that was great. Thank you all. And it was great to hear some of those poems that you've worked on and edited and that we heard really early drafts of. So thank you. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Daljit Nagra now. I think I met Daljit when I was first starting out writing, and I remember we were at a reading at Swindon Poetry Festival, and I read what became the kind of title poem of All the Men I Never Married, and you said, can I just have a look at it? And you said, oh, it's a really good poem, but the form's wrong. And it was in a long column, and he said, it needs to be kind of fragmented across the page, and I went, a bit like one of the students, I was like, outwardly, I was going, yeah, I'm not doing that. And it took 10 years before the poem was published, and I looked at it and thought, Daljit was right. And then I fragmented it, and then it ended up in the book in how Daljit told me to do it. So that was when we first met. It all worked out in the end. So it's a real pleasure to introduce Daljit, whose work, I think, has transformed the sound and scope of British poetry. His work delights in linguistic play, emotional nuance, and cultural hybridity, crafting poems that are as bold in their music as they are incisive in their ideas. Since his debut with Look, We Have Come Into Dover, he's explored the complexities of identity, migration, and belonging with a voice that is unmistakably his own. This year marks the arrival of his new collection, Yiewsley, a book that turns its gaze towards the landscapes of his youth and childhood. And I was lucky enough to hear some of the new poems at a recent festival, and it really felt, again, like it does with all of Daljit's books, that he shifts gear with every collection. This one feels like it's moving into new territory, carving out a different relationship with the lyric. I was talking to Malika about your work before you arrived, talking about you, and we decided that... I'm blaming Malika as well, that we decided that you are the Madonna of contemporary poetry because she kind of reinvents herself with every album. Malika said you wouldn't mind me saying that, so... I mean, what can you do? You can't speak yet, can you? So I think you're going to read some of a few new poems from the book that isn't out yet. It's out next month, isn't it? Next month? And you're going to read from some of the older books. I was talking to the students about that idea of our work changing and not settling for. I think one of the things that Daljit is brilliant at is he doesn't settle for what's worked in the last book. You're always kind of developing and challenging yourself and the reader. beyond the page, Daljit's a dynamic performer and a tireless advocate for poetry as well. Through his work with the BBC, the Royal Society of Literature, his mentorship of emerging writers. He sits on various boards, which sounds like my idea of hell, but you do it and someone has to do it. Daljit's looking uncomfortable. If you've seen him kind of shifting uncomfortably while I was doing that introduction, he's not used to me being nice about him, are you? But please welcome Daljit Nagra.
Oh, thank you. That was a really lovely introduction. Thank you, Kim. It's amazing to hear the MA students as well. And as Kim said earlier on, you're looking to sort of create different voices, and there's a real diversity of styles there. That really came across. So well done. And also to teachers, because it's not easy doing that, is it? I think it's quite easy to kind of end up with a kind of group voice. And actually it takes a lot of skill as a teacher to make sure you're not directing people into a direction you feel is right for your own work. And thank you for being positive about that story. It sounded horrible first about telling you to change the form. I hope I said it in a gentler way than that. Did it? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Right. And I need to go to a plastic phase at some point for my Madonna period. So I'll read a poem, as Kim said, about changing style. So I'll read something from my first collection. I haven't read this for years. I was just reminded of this because a few days ago, one of my kind of distant relative was talking about the whole family going to India to buy up loads of things for a wedding. So my background's sort of Punjab, India. You can go to Punjab, buy up loads of stuff like Indian gold. We buy loads of Indian gold. It's a certain type of colour. It's very pure, but it's a certain type of yellow people in my community really crave for weddings. And when you have weddings, like in my background, it's about 5 days of festivities. You have to buy clothes for both sides of the family and for your own relatives as well, alongside jewellery and various other things. So I thought I'd write a poem about that in particular years ago, because all my family seemed to do this. And at that point, Aeroflot, I don't know if you remember Aeroflot, the Russian flights, it used to be really cheap, and that was a kind of real thing for us. People would go back for a few days to buy up clothes. And I was really struck by how snooty some of my relatives are. When they go back, they see themselves as really superior to the local Indians because they're here, they've made it. So it's just really about that. So I've called it For the Wealth of India. To Aeroflot, I should say it's a daughter speaking, and she's going back with her mum. I read it a long time ago. For the Wealth of India. To Aeroflot, the savage miles in a moment, tucking under continents to clip the distance, zoomed to our ancestral homeland, so we ransack the bizarre tracks of back-alley bounteous Jalandhar, ranting down the marker prices to a smudge paid by my permed auntie in Warsaw, bombing through the brightly lit boutiques, mum beating a brow, stomping a finger, so a gold-toothed owner clicks to a knobbly-knees, bent-necked man who trays us with milky sweets and cans of Fanta, who says, "God, you bless Mem Sahibs," twisting away with a snarl. I see it. Punting my heel up his arse, I scurry him off like a rat. From the stalls of the shop, posted with Marju Dixit and Wham, we shoot through the glossy catalogues of the we shoot through the glossy pages of the tea-stained catalogues for the blood sari to wow the guests into awe when I walk the aisle to the holy book of my biggest day. That's the style, mummy. I need it now, mummy. The ultimate design to highlight my super long legs. But the tailors scratch their necks, snort, reversing some phlegm, until mum clears them with her finest English. What is this corruption? We need it fatafat. Or must we go to the clean-nosed Hindu with gut scissors next door? Daddy would applaud if he wasn't slogging back at the concrete factory. The pongy tailors run like flies now that time is against them, as we debate with a queue of Englanders the top carat beauty of exotic things, and which riff-raff road in Southall we all left for Harrow. The locals still looks from us for ages, until mum blinks them with the sun off her gemmed Rolex. I wonder if Mum's old family were trapped over here, too sweaty for style, with all the pig-sniffing sewers so heavy and holding. Ah, well, what a shame, as we lap up our suits, shoes, and bags of bangles and cheapo knickers, tossing them at the slouch driver of the flimsy rickshaw to shout, "Jaldi, jaldi, back to Britain, get us out of here," spinning a penny to some limbless in a bucket. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Don't know if that was like, what the hell was that? I guess that first collection, I was really trying to have loads of speed in the poems. It was really thinking for me, and mixing up sort of verbs and nouns and adjectives to make the language, English language, almost feel at sea, so it never quite settles down. And I guess I was trying to put those, you know, I guess you do rhythm with people like him. Do you do rhythm stuff? I was always trying to have a couple of two non-stresses in the lines to, anapes and dactyls, those sort of various rhythms, to kind of create a kind of energy. So you just have to skate through the words, and not kind of mechanically, but every now and then, but wherever possible, and have really loud sounds. So this kind of intense internal rhyme, which I then amped up even more in my second collection, which excited me. I don't know if it excited anyone else, but I was very happy with that. But I'll read a section of the quieter poems from there. So I guess one of the things that happened in my first book, I wrote a kind of meta poem. I don't know if you students do that kind of meta poem, a poem about writing a poem. And I wrote one in my first book, and I kind of thought quite long and hard about it. And then that led to a poem in my second book, kind of a really long one, which then in turn led to another long poem in my third book. So it's been amazing. It's made me have to think about why, sort of the question was, why am I writing poetry as a person of colour? And finding some questions to ask myself. And in the act of writing those questions, you're kind of finding some sort of solutions. I'll read a couple of, maybe one section from this. It's quite a long, difficult one, so I'll read a couple of sections. I will do too. So I was thinking about the Globe Theatre. You know, the British Empire happened after the Globe was built and finished before the second was built. So it happened in that phase. And I imagine in this poem, I'm kind of walking around, I'm going to see a Shakespearean tragedy at the Globe. And I've got a few quotes. Suities, you know, Suities, the wives who would throw themselves into a funeral pyre. And I would say Necessary Murder. I've written it in the style of Spain by W.H. Auden. I just try to copy his style because I couldn't think of how to do the poem. And that kind of gave me a kind of energy. And in his poem about Spain, the Civil War, he talks about, he says, the conscious acceptance of guilt in the necessary murder. He talks about murder as a kind of, you know, you have to accept it as, you know, it makes you guilty. And Orwell took him down for it. And I think it's in TLS. And he says, you don't know what the word murder is. It's just a word to you. You haven't killed anyone. You can't possibly know what it means. So I think I was referring to that. So anyway, it's just about going to the theatre, watching a Shakespearean play at the Globe. A black history of the English-speaking peoples. So I'll read the first act, as it were. So it's the kind of king, the Shakespeare. A king's invocations at the Globe Theatre spin me from my stand to a time when boyish bravado and cannonade and plunder were enough to woo the regal seat. That the stuff of Elizabethan art and a nation of walled gardens in a local one-upmanship would tame the four-cornered world for empire's dominion seems inconceivable. Between the birth and the fire and rebirth of the globe, the visions of Albion led to a rule Britannia of trade winds and Gulf Stream all-conquering fleets that aroused theatres for lectures on Hottentots and craniology, whilst Eden was paraded in queue. Between Mayflower and Windrush, with each necessary murder, the celebrated embeddings of imperial gusto, where jungles were surmounted, so the light of learning be spread to help sobbing suities give up the ghost of a husband's flaming pyre. I'll read one more section from that. So it's just 2 verses, number 4, just about coming clean, as I was saying. So it's still watching a tragedy. 4, who believes a bleached yarn? Would we openly admit the Livingston spirit turned Kurtz? Our flag is a union of black and blue flapping in the anthems of haunted rain. Coming clean will surely give us greater distance than this king at the globe, whose head seems cluttered with golden age bump, whose suffering ends him agog at the stars. Thank you. Thank you. I had a plan to read some nice jolly poems. Then you get up on stage, you don't know what happens to you, do you? You just do some really difficult things. I'm going to keep in with another difficult poem. A poem about poetry, I guess, about poetry. And I guess one of the things, when I first started writing, I was writing early on, I had a few sort of Asian friends from similar sort of background, but they're all sort of social theorists, and I didn't get why I would write poetry. They saw it as a white, preserved form, elitist form. So I felt quite embarrassed about writing poetry amongst these kind of, group of super clever social theorists, which I think I probably still do. Is kind of, like you've kind of gone to the wrong side. You should be exploring social theory, not writing this fanciful piffle, Anyway, I wrote this because when you've got kids and a house and stuff, you go to the recycling centre every now and then. Do some of the more adulty people go? I have to go, I'll go every now and then because the bins, fill up easily. So go to the recycling centre. And I quite often used to play CDs in my car of poets. So in this one, I've got one of T.S. Eliot reading his own poems, which is really interesting. And Kamal Braithwaite wrote an essay about how, Eliot was taken during the 1920s. His recordings were taken to India, to various parts of the empire as a way of promoting Britishness, and keeping people on board. And he talks about, Kamal Braithwaite talks about, it's actually the way he did those, mimicky, funny voices that Eliot did. People are really taken by it, because normally you recite it in a certain way, and Eliot wasn't doing that. So anyway, this is just a poem about poetry. Me listening to Eliot in the car. So he do the foreign voices. Ah, way la la, you say in time with Eliot, as you head for the rubbish dump on Sunday morning, listening to your CD of those free rhythms for Mr. Kurtz, he dead, for stranded Tiresias and Lil, for Krishna and the Datta and da, da, da. It's now you feel most akin to Kamal Braithwaite, who, back in the day, implied it was the voice itself, not the words, the Eliot twang, the mock English that persuaded the empire's embrace for colonial verse. With the windows down, the roof dissolves, you're swayed by the lazy turns, but feel goaded. The pile-up of white males in English anthologies enrich the garden of your adult studies. Your like-minded friends regard the expense of verse a waste, an embarrassment. They bypassed your dated muse to forge their forces on Barber, Spivak, Zizek, or whoever. Out of the car, you're aside the other men now, hurling down towards each label container as you land on the usual thought. What comes of verse at the dawn of catastrophe? For the valleys smeared with murder, where somewhere just now a poet will be pulped in a state of terror. Verse seems redundant to cause, at best an orison or epitaph, an adult in kindergarten with a surplus song and dance of decommissioned moods for the lyric graces. You drive away, yet somehow affirmed, more in love with your pretty airs that update the same old, that speak to power and fear, whether they're heard or not. They'll say head on, before family and blood and wealth, our hoard of words must cleanse the world. Okay, I'm going to read a few poems from my collection, Yiewsley. How are we doing for time? We're fine. And so this is, I think it's my 6th collection, so it's coming out in a few months. And I want to write, I guess eventually, it's my first kind of autobiographical collection in the sense that my earlier books, I've probably got 1 or 2 poems that are kind of about myself or about my own family and stuff directly. But in this collection, the whole thing is autobiographical, about 90 pages, just me. And I want to write just about that. So I want to write about 1970s Britain leading into early 1980s. So 1982, when I was 16, my brother and my parents bought a shop in Sheffield. So we lived there when I was 16. So my brother left school at 16 and he ran a shop. And I guess my parents are kind of, labourer migrants who came to Britain. So I'd say it's a quite unique subset of the working class, that kind of group. They were farmers back in India. And in our 3-bedroom house, there was about 9 to 13 or 15 of us in the house. Loads of people sometimes come and stay with us, migrants. Had my dad's side of the family and my mum's side of the family for many years living with us. That's very different as well, isn't it? And everyone seemed to work 6 or 7 days a week. If they could get 7 days of work, they would do it. Okay? And apart from my dad, who had a bit of education, everyone else was uneducated, actually. So my mum had never been to school. She'd gone to work in the fields from the age of 3 or 4. So I want to write about that, the migrant background, but also thinking about that shift from manufacturing to service sector. So in some of the earlier poems, I write about that world, of the 70s world, and my own sort of place in it. And then by the early 80s, you've got the birth of the computer and things like the cappuccino and national curriculum. All these cool things are happening that we relate to. But back in the old world, you had sort of rag and bow men. Do you remember any of those? And Telegram man would come, in the post. Used to be phones, and if you had a message from somewhere distant, somebody would come from the post office on a motorbike and deliver you a message, and it was charged per letter. So it might be so-and-so died, come ASAP, that kind of thing. Or we found someone for so-and-so, they need to come and get married. In my background is that sort of stuff. And it would be literally, an arranged marriage, and someone would have to go, leave the factory on a Friday and go for a week to get married. But that was, other people use telegrams as well, for different reasons. So I thought I'd read just first 3. I don't know if they're the best poems or anything, but just to give you a sense of how I sculpted the book, in a sense. So I've written most of the book, and then I needed the first poem. And it's quite like the idea of a first poem in a book, just be about a page in length. That would be my tip. Wouldn't you, Kim? Just a page-length poem, and ideally something that picks up the themes of the whole collection. So it's in the tone of the collection, but it isn't necessarily probing too deeply yet. Okay, but it's just sort of gathering stuff. You get that from music, don't you? You get those sort of ideas. So I'll just read this as this kind of opening thing. So for some of the younger ones, you might not get these references. Let's see. So I've called it Lollipop. Now summon the town where you were born, near the bigger towns. Your post-war, round-the-clock, whistling factory town, with its hoarse hush of conveyor belts and boiler suits in the graveyard shift, with gloved hands that steer the coal truck to the coal holes along your gardens, while Norman wisdom delivers black and white milk. Incomers are welcomed with open arms at shop floor and workshop for the reconstruction, as they dream of bangles dressing the marital wrist for the dawn of their history in this haven, where the nets of the tennis courts with their white strips overlapping the top are emphatic and fair as the lollipop lady at the zebra crossing. Public labs, postbox filled to overflowing, no park drunks or fly tipping, and an oil swing that feels like a flight with Flash Gordon to Mongo, from where you spy the church memorial with poppy wreaths for the worldwide who fought, whose names liveth forevermore. So obviously I had to get my little dig in about the worldwide, because, Indians fought in the First and Second World War in massive numbers. And that's, so hopefully that set up the mood. Did you get some of those references? Have you heard of Norman Wisdom? He was my favourite comedian as a kid. So he was a milkman in some of the Pipkins in colour, but most people in the 70s still had black and white tellies. Wouldn't you say any of you remember any of this? You're too young, aren't you? Okay, also the thing in this collection was I wrote it in the second person, you, because when I started thinking about my past, I felt like burdened with the I voice, the ego of the I. And when I started thinking about the you, and it's quite liminal, isn't it? It's like you talking to you or to yourself, but also I felt like it was a kind of dispersal of consciousness. You know, that the self is, the you is talking. It didn't feel pegged in to I. It released me of that burden. And I found I kind of wrote quite a lot of the collection very quickly over a space of a few weeks, just by thinking of the you voice. I found that kind of hole to go through into the past. And in a sense, I guess it's historic poetry, because I'm writing about 70s and myself. And I want to be true to things. But also I found as I was writing that the tone became more important, the tonal gravity, the tone of being dignified and kind and fair to people. Because you can go into a kind of mode of point scoring, you know, and being horrible to people, because it was a very difficult life, you know, when you live in a big house and, you know, all that stuff. Anyway, so this is a poem, and so this is my second poem. I thought I'd explain the use of the you in the collection. So the collection still hasn't got going yet. So I've called it Owl, you know, owls. Who are you, says a wood owl. You are who you are, you say, which will not appease its brows, browsing the woods. You are, you say, or were, or come from a stone's throw from Heathrow Airport. Though that's not true. Just off the runways, the other way are Southall, Hayes and Hounslow, where the people who garland your gods make do. You live where they do not. The owl looks askance at you and says, are you muddy puddled when what you've become isn't what you were supposed to be? And you say, who'd be twit-twooed in a twig-bright, snappable eye? Being you is how you've always held you from being two. Hid like an owl in the woods, you is what you retreat to when you're in deep, watching yourself in distress. This way, you being you, your explosions are no more explosive than a clown bouquet. And the beak of the owl starts to elongate. It's gone bald and is sheening as it alloys itself and expands till it's nosing up and is up in the air. It's a plane. It's the first Concorde down the road from New York as it sprays confetti of steam to say, enjoy the jamboree of what's in you, your first Yiewsley, as an owl feather falls in the gulping palm of yourself as a child, which is what you've become. And then my next poem in the collection is a long poem about Yiewsley. As a child, I wander around the streets and just do loads of sensual descriptions of 1970s Yiewsley, the town near Heathrow. And then I'll read one more about my mum. She's a piece of work. She still is. She's 86. She's incapable of not falling out with people. And when she falls out, she's really dramatic and becomes highly imaginative. So this is actually a situation more or less as I remember it from when I was younger. And also it's a way of exploring or mentioning Lucozade. So younger people won't remember, it used to be covered in cellophane. I don't know if you've ever seen the Lucozade bottles. They were quite a thing in the 70s, weren't they? And if, you know, when somebody's in hospital, it was quite normal. I don't know, in my background anyway, you always took a bottle of Lucozade with a cellophane. Otherwise, it's an insult. All right? You're not ill if you didn't take it. It's a bit like that. Anyway, so this is about me Mum telling me to go and get a bottle of Lucozade from the local shop. And this is what happened. So, Lucozade. It bound the town together, a gift for the hospital visit. A drink so classy, some raise it home like a toast in a wine glass. Its wrapping nearly the colour of the saffron seek, bright as the salwar bottoms your mum wore, who'd call herself the marigold of God, in whom pure faith will never run dry. Its crinkly wrapping like a sweetie paper you touched with your fingertips to snap, crackle and pop. And here's you now, carrying a bottle all the way home. It's so big that its scrunched head becomes a bonfire flame, scratching your 5 or 6-year-old chin. As you near the front door, it slips and smashes, the glass cutting through the gold leaf. You tell your mum what you've done. She doesn't slap you, but puts on her sandals, marching to the shop. You're breathless behind her. You bought it from the Indian shop, the only Indian shop in your town. And she's been mumbling some stuff about a cleaner caste Sikh. Back home, his lot clean the Lucozade glasses of our landowner caste. Then she's in his shop and at him. You took my son's money, but you didn't give him the bottle. I'm not leaving till. He's telling her to leave. And she says, how dare he diddle her son? She's got a voice sharp and heavy as a scythe in your garden, like the one she swung on the farms of her milk teeth years. He tries to ask you about the bottle you took, but she won't have him speak to you. The customers, who aren't Indian at all, frown at all these foreign words being raised, and he keeps shuffling his scared-looking glasses, then says, take a bottle and leave, then actually brings one to rest on the counter and watches her take her time as she takes it. From the front steps, you clear up the mess. The whole scene, as you lift the carbonated shards, is a golden vomit. What happens, she'll say, when you let things slip through your hands? Thank you very much. I'll stop there. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Are we going to sit down?
Yeah, up to you, yeah.
I'm basically refusing to stand.
We're going to sit, apparently.
Yeah. Just to give you some...
We don't have to. Oh, okay.
Okay. I love that. That's one of my... I love that poem. And I've never met another family that has the language of Lucozade. In my family, if you got a red bottle, you were really ill. And if you got an orange one, do you remember the orange flavour? That meant you were faking it. It was like an insult. Okay, so we've got time for like a couple of questions before there's books at the back as well. So I'm telling you now, so I don't forget. Blackwell's have very kindly come and they've got a couple of Daljit's collections. Sadly, not Yiewsley because we're a bit early, but some of the I think they've got British Museum and Indium at the back. So there will be time for you to sign a book, won't there? Yeah. So has anyone got any questions they would like to start off with? Thanks, Malika, for that save. You let the students off, though. I mean, I wouldn't have saved them that soon. Go on. And I'm going to repeat the question for the online people, because of the... I'm just going to repeat the question. So Malika has asked a question about how when you get to the end of each book, is it a deliberate decision when you, because they're all so different, is it a deliberate decision to change style or thematic or approach to language, or does it just kind of happen by accident?
Thank you for that question, Malika. It's really good. Well, I think partly consciously I try and shift to keep myself excited with each book, because I found myself writing in a similar voice to like a first book or second. It feels, oh, I've done that. And one of the things I do every time I finish a collection, you'd be interested in this, I play loads of Miles Davis. Because Miles Davis is incredible. He constantly reinvents himself. He's really heroic, isn't he, in the way he does that? And I just think I've got to listen to Miles Davis, and it just in charge me up to challenge me so I don't end up writing in the same old way. I think when I first started writing, it was just a hobby, and I still think of writing as a hobby, and that would be a tip I would give to anyone. You know, there's a phase when you write, and then suddenly you're getting a pamphlet or a book, and you enter this world of competition. And then people start, getting embittered. They've been overlooked for prizes. And that can really and I've seen so many writers get derailed by that. I'm sure you've seen that as well. It's really sad because I don't think we by nature are the competitive types, are we? We didn't really do well probably at sports day. Actually, you and some of you did. And, so it was suddenly to be thrown in. So for me, it's still really important to feel it's a hobby and it's just to enjoy it as a new thing. And I don't have an agent, don't do social media, so I don't have that pressure on me. And my publisher leaves me alone. And I just write what the hell I want. And I wait for something exciting. So I don't have that pressure. I think if you have an agent, maybe, obviously people need agents and things, but maybe there's that guilt or pressure of an expectation. I don't know. So in that sense, it's worked well for me so far.
I love that idea of having a music or musician to charge you up to, and I should explain I play the trumpet. I haven't got a random crush on Miles Davis, who of course has been dead for a long time. Okay, has anyone got any questions? Another question? Jeanne, and then we'll go. So that was a question about editing, whether you edit on your own or take it to someone for feedback. I think that was it.
Yeah, I think a few things. One is time. I mean, when you do an MA, you don't have time. But I try and sort of leave poems. I find that's really useful. Just not to look at it for a while and wait for it to call me. If that sounds a bit too esoteric or weird, mystic. Because one of the tricks is if it's not calling me back, it's probably boring. And it's not going to interest me. So that's the first test. And if it's been sitting there for a while, it feels refreshed again. And I have various people's voices in my head. And I do show to some friends, my wife. But I think I can hear voices of other writers. When you get feedback, you start absorbing their voices. It's really useful. I hear my editor. I think what they might say doesn't work. You try to anticipate that. And obviously show it to people as well. But I think time is probably the best thing. Just to leave it and just keep testing the poem, like write in first person, third, get rid of a verse, which I would say is playing, is having a good time. If you can get confident at just mucking around with the poem and really listen to it. Early on, I would try and force a poem to become what I wanted it to be. And actually, you have to find what the poem wants. You have to sort of really listen carefully and see what it is. You might have to get rid of your best bits. Which is almost always the case, isn't it? You have some lines you really like, and they almost always have to go for some reason, because they're not necessarily right for that poem. So it's having the confidence to do that. I
like that idea of testing the poem. And also I talk about leaving it to cook in the notebook, which again, I feel guilty because sometimes I've been working on a poem for about 10 years and I'm saying to the students, come on, you've got to submit this week. So it's that push and pull, isn't it? I think did you have a question?
Well, I'd say I think you have an incredible kind of flow and rhythm and musicality to your poetry. And for me, flow is just like, if you can get the flow right, it's just the sound of the music. I think it's beautiful and it really speaks to me. And my question is, before you write a poem, do you kind of have a flow in your head of like the beats and everything? And that's like, I have no words, but I have this flow and I want to write to it. Or you start writing and that flow kind of creates itself.
Okay, so a question about lots of compliments about Daljit, which I'm not going to repeat for the online audience because they'll just get a big head. And then a question about the flow of the poetry and whether you have it already in your head, a kind of rhythm, or you did say flow specifically, which do you see that as different to rhythm? Okay. Yeah, I'm falling down a poetry rabbit hole now, which we could talk about for half an hour. So do you have the flow in your head already, or does it develop as you're writing?
I like the word flow. It feels more comprehensive than rhythm, which feels a very granular experience. But yeah, I think every poem, and sometimes I never get to the poem, and my second collection had a poem which I had to build in my head for over about a year and a half before I wrote it, because I couldn't work out if it needed to be fast or slow, or whether it needed to be quite dense with a diction or quite light and fluid. So in that sense, yeah, I think it's really important to build it in your head. And I've written sometimes, start writing the poem, and the magic seems to go. It's really weird. So I tend to build it up in my head and leave it, sometimes for a few days or for a few months. I think I had this, a bit embarrassing, but is an interview with George Michael. I mean, I'm not into the poetry, the songs. I've got nothing against them. It's like in the 1990s. It's with Morrissey, though, being interviewed together. But George Michael said, I never write a lyric as I hear it on the day. I leave it for at least a night or two, because if it's going to be memorable, it will stay in my head. And I think that's really good instruction, because every line wants to be remembered, wants to be loved. So if you can't even love it for a night, it's not going to work, is it? So maybe George Michael is our inspiration.
We can use George Michael to charge up. I think we've got time for one more, because I want to leave time for people to buy books and things. So go on. So a question about creating different voices in poetry, yeah?
I think partly it might be preset. You have a sense of a style for the stuff you're writing at the moment. Then you go looking for the material. Like, so my third book, I wanted to make it quieter, but I wanted this expansive diction. And I realised what I probably want to do is write poems about institutions. I got a poem about the BBC, Hadrian's Wall, as it were, you know, that whole industry, British Museum and things like that. So partly you prejudge it, I think. You think, well, I've got a style I'm quite interested in exploring, see how it might work, because I've written one or two pieces. And you're looking for material. And I wrote a version of the Ramayana, the Indian epic. And at that time, I want to see what's the loudest I could go on the page, what's the most expressive I could get. And I want to do Ramayana because there's no one version, different versions in Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, different version in India, puppet show, theatre, page. So that felt the right text for me to absorb all those, to control the language. So in that sense, it's diction, isn't it? I guess more.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, and thank you for those questions. We're going to wrap up now so that Daljit's got time to sign some books. I've just got a couple of thank yous. But before I do the thank yous, I've been asked to remind everyone that the Manchester Translation Series starts tomorrow, all day, and Thursday. We've got two ex-MA students, Abhijit Singh and Anita Nagai, hosting panels. If I heard a rumour right that Lorna Goodison is coming? Lorna Goodison is here, the Queen. Online. Oh, well, we can just sit here and online. But it would still be great, though. Yeah, we could have. Never mind. Curses. But she's going to be online, which will be great. So do come to some of those events. So I just want to say thank you to our brilliant MA students for their fantastic poems tonight. Thank you to Daljit for fantastic reading and generosity. Thank you. Thank you to our student ambassadors, Sophie and Megan, who have been sorting the microphone out, and Will, who is doing the live stream at the back. And thank you to staff at the Poetry Library as well for doing all of the organising and making everything run smoothly, which is harder than it sounds. Thank you, Becky. So we've got time now, if you're quick, to run to the bookshop so the bookshop seller doesn't have to carry all the books back, which will be very sad for them. And you can buy a book and get Daljit to sign with an elaborate, personalised message just for you. Maybe a little poem as well. Thank you all for coming.